Why is it that whenever DICE ask the community if they want something changing, and the community say, no, we really don't, the DICE go ahead and change it anyway? These knee-jerk reactions have become commonplace within the Battlefield franchise, and we've seen them for years and years. I remember back in Battlefield 4, when the TV missile, something that I started my channel giving guides on, received a ridiculous nerf to change it to fly more like the UCAV. And then they changed it back within a week or so. Yes, this was on the CTE, not on the main game, and with Battlefield 5 we have been subject to some pretty crazy changes overnight. That being said, this change was not really a surprise to me when I heard DICE talking about it a couple of weeks ago. I knew at some point they would go ahead with it, even though the community, the majority of the community that is, have said that they are opposed to the change. Now of course I'm talking about the TTK shift. For those that don't know, TTK means time to kill, and essentially what DICE have done is make that time to kill a lot longer. That means that you're going to be taking more bullets to kill the enemies that you're shooting at. Now many people think DICE have changed this in order to address the time to die issue that has been plaguing Battlefield 5 since release. The time to die issue is where you die in one single frame to an enemy that's shooting you, and it doesn't matter what gun they're using at all. I've died in one frame to people using the overpowered or previously overpowered KE7, or I've died in one frame to people using the Sten at around 30 meters, so they'd have taken around 5 seconds to kill me anyway, but nonetheless the game didn't tell me I was taking damage and I died in one frame. Now changing the time to kill and making it much longer, as DICE have done with this recent patch, isn't actually going to fix anything with the time to die or the one frame bug, and I've experienced a couple of times where I've died in one frame, so have friends of mine, and I'm sure that although it might be slightly less common, possibly, I don't know the figures on it, but I can guarantee you it is still there, and in fact it may feel even more frustrating, as there's no way you should be dying that fast with a time to kill that is so long. DICE argued that they changed these values in order to facilitate a more even gameplay experience for all of their players, resulting in a more level playing field for new and experienced players alike. I don't really get that comment from the outset. Let's just think about that for a second. Resulting in a more level playing field. What does that even mean? Does that mean that they want the new players to get as many kills as the experienced players, so there's a very low skill ceiling in the game, and no matter what you do, you can't improve on this really quite slow and pedestrian gameplay style that DICE are trying to force into the game? I thought the whole point of Battlefield 5 was to create a more hardcore experience with certain aspects of the game that would really punish you for being aggressive and jumping into the face of enemy players unless you had the aim to back it up. Now at the minute you jump out from behind cover, you're a bullet sponge, you can take a lot of damage before you're taken down. At the same time, the people you're shooting take a lot of damage before they die. The only positive thing I can take from this entire change to the time to kill is the fact that if you are really accurate at getting headshots, it won't affect you as much as those people who aren't very accurate. If you're getting headshots a lot of the time, this isn't really going to affect you as much as those people that get a lot of body shots. But at the same time, it's down to the weapon that you use. If you're a medic, you've been punished really, really badly by DICE. The SMGs were pathetic before the time to kill change. Now they are essentially useless. At some ranges, it's a 9-bullet kill with the SMGs, which is absolutely absurd. Let's get on to a bit more specific information. Now I'm going to list a couple of things that DICE have changed. Then I'm going to give my opinion on it and bring in some debates from Twitter, from Reddit, from my Discord channel. All of these things that pretty much sum up my feelings on the changes. Semi-auto rifles now require one more round to kill, and the drop-off is shorter, meaning you can no longer 3-bullet kill. Your 10-round Gewehr now takes 4 shots to kill someone to the body. Assault rifles, MMGs, LMGs and SMGs can no longer 4-hit kill with body shots only. Some SMGs are a 9-bullet kill at range. SLRs require an extra shot to kill compared to before. Buckshot shotguns are the same as before, whilst slugs deal slightly less damage to certain body parts. I will reiterate here, if you are a player with an SLR that gets lots of headshots, it probably won't impact you much at all. And for the snipers, well, lucky you, you're not going to have to implement really any changes to your playstyle. In fact, you've just become a bit more of a bullet sponge. The way I see it is DICE have essentially looked at Battlefield 5 and realised people are having too much fun with the crisp gunplay and decided that is not okay, and have instead ruined everything with this TTK shift. Some people might like it, but that's not the point. The majority of the community said they didn't want it, but DICE went ahead and changed it anyway. What does that say about DICE as a company? They have been saying they're going to listen to the community and take into consideration everything we say, but in fact they have clearly just disagreed with the community in this case, and that brings me on to the next point. Why even give feedback if DICE clearly aren't going to listen? On the official DICE post, there was a comment on there saying, but why mess around with the TTK when it's ideal in its current state? Although not extremely vocal within our deeply engaged community, we see from our game data that the wider player base is dying too fast, leading to faster churn, meaning players may be getting frustrated with dying too fast, and they choose not to log back in and learn how to become more proficient at Battlefield 5. Now, let's be honest here. When you die in a Battlefield game, it's usually because you've done something wrong. It's usually because you've jumped out from behind cover and not killed the guy who's shooting at you, or you've lost a 1v1, or there is a possibility that you've been unlucky and you've been bombed by a bomber, or shot by a Panzerfaust or a grenade, and there's nothing you can do to get rid of that. That's always going to be in Battlefield games. That's the whole point of Battlefield. I play games of Battlefield and I die loads of times, and I don't get frustrated. When you die to bugs, however, that is a different story, and Battlefield 5 is littered with them. Let's just take the biggest one, in my opinion, the time to die bug. If you are dying in one frame, you're getting frustrated, you're quitting. Changing the TTK will not change that. You have to fix the time to die bug, and that is not going to be fixed in my opinion. I don't think they'll fix it. If they could fix it already, they would have. It must have been top of the list when they were testing the game. I think probably the biggest point to take away from this is that DICE will almost certainly keep altering Battlefield 5. This isn't the final iteration of the game. They will go back to what we had before. I'm pretty certain the backlash around this is not good. Many of the major Battlefield YouTubers, and I'd like to think I can almost call myself a fairly major Battlefield YouTuber at this point, because not that many people cover Battlefield 5. And in my case, I am going to put Battlefield down for a bit. Many of you will have seen on Twitter a month ago or so, a couple of weeks ago, I said I think I might get 1,000 hours out of Battlefield 5 because I was really loving it when the game came out. Legitimately, I thought it was one of the best Battlefield games I'd played on release. Not the best Battlefield game by any stretch, but a really good one on release. I also anticipated DICE making very positive changes, fixing the bugs, and making the game better with every patch. They have not done that, they have made it worse, and for that reason, I won't be playing it very much at all until they change something. An interesting point by Toleresia on Reddit. DICE isn't ignoring your feedback, they're disagreeing with you. There's a meaningful difference between the two. And this is true. DICE, of course, isn't ignoring the feedback. They do take the feedback on board. There is a legitimate reason why they ask for this sort of feedback. It's because someone is there reading it. They don't read everything, but the stuff that gets upvoted, the stuff that's at the top of forum boards and Reddit posts, or maybe you've DM'd a developer, they will read through it and they will take it on board. However, in this case, they are just disagreeing, and that's not necessarily an awful thing. A developer that can think on their own and actually take on board different criticisms and then remove criticisms they don't want and fix the game, etc. is fine. If the game was developed purely on what the community wanted, it would be a disaster because unfortunately the community doesn't know what they want. That's been proved in many Battlefield games. People want things changing. The minute it's changed, they want it changed back. So DICE have kind of got my support in this regard. They are supposed to change things using their own expertise, but that being said, recent changes have proved to me that maybe they don't know what they're doing either, so we're in a bit of a situation here. I feel a little let down. DICE went out of their way to ruin this game with the SJW historical accuracy don't buy our game uneducated player based debacle, but that clearly wasn't enough. They've now ruined a pretty decent game as well. It's a bit of a slap in the face to those people that stuck by their side after all of the rubbish that went on through the summer. For those that don't know, what they've actually done is change the entire TTK overall and kept the original TTK and placed it in a game mode called Conquest Core, Or that's at least what I think they've done. Whenever I joined Conquest Core, I was subject to normal Conquest and the new TTK changes. So, as far as I'm aware, there's no original TTK left in the game, but according to DICE there is. Why couldn't they have kept Conquest as it was, kept all the game modes as it was, maybe a couple of bug fixes here and there, and then make a new mode? A new mode called Battlefield TTK 2.0 or something like that, almost like a CTE integrated into the main game. You'd then have some achievements or challenges that you'd have to complete on that new server. You'd go on, you'd do it, maybe you'd think, oh, this TTK is rubbish, maybe you'd think it's okay, but it doesn't matter because it's just one little section of the game. You're going on it to complete your achievements. DICE can get all the footage they need, all of the statistics, analysis, whatever else they need to get, and then they can go ahead and debate whether they're going to make the change, instead of just saying, overnight, we're changing TTK to Battlefield 5, get used to it. The game feels sluggish to me. Everything I enjoyed about the game seems to have disappeared. I'm sorry, I'm not going to play a game that I don't enjoy. And as you know, I am very honest with my opinion. That often gets me in some trouble because one day I'll say I love something, the next day I'll say I hate it because I just say what's on my mind most of the time. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Is it a positive change? Is it a negative change? I know a lot of people say that they are happy DICE are experimenting with things and actually going forward and changing parts of the game instead of just leaving a broken mess, but in doing so they have frustrated a lot of players, including myself. They've done something that I didn't agree with, and I think it's going to have a pretty negative effect on the game coming up to this Christmas period, where I assume they thought they'd sell a lot more copies and get people really on board with what they're trying to achieve.